Before we get to the Big Bash, though, we should take some time to talk about Mike Hussey's career and how big a hole that's going to leave for the Australian setup. Don't forget, he'll be in action for the Scorchers on Wednesday night. But boys, I've got to talk about Mike Hussey. I'll come to you first because you played with him, recently, and that's just going to be a massive hole, isn't it, for Australia?
Oh, it is absolutely. And when Mike initially told me that he was retiring, I was, very sad, to be honest, because he's been a big player and big part of my time in the Australian team. He's always so unbelievably dependable in every situation, on the cricket field, but also off the cricket field. So to think that I'm not going to play another game for Australia with Mike Hussey is very sad, because what he's been able to contribute to my life alone and my cricket is I'm forever thankful and grateful.
Michael Hussey, who's on fire, absolutely on fire. He's retiring, much the same, as Warney when he left. I don't want to be the next Michael Hussey. If I'm coming into the team as a young batsman, it's almost poison chalice time. You come into the side. How can you be Michael Hussey? All of the experience. Didn't play till he was 30, so he had all of that experience banked behind him. And I'm sorry, Watto, but I'm actually. I know you'd love to play as a batsman, but I would love to see you jumping in and doing his job, because I can't see anybody else in Australian cricket who has the capacity to perform consistently well the way that he does. So sorry about that.
Well, who does replace him? Who do we
Shane Watson, full stop.
Well, Watto's going to open, so who's going to come in the middle order? What happens there? Is it a George Bailey? Are they sort of grooming a George Bailey?
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if it is George Bailey. I know Khawaja's obviously around the mark, but I see him more as a top order player. So I wouldn't be surprised if George Bailey gets an opportunity. I mean, they obviously think of him very highly with the captaincy, and that's done really well in the one-day international so far with his opportunities. Would not be surprised if George Bailey goes to India to bat at number 6, 5 or 6.
What about someone like David Hussey, specifically for a tour of India?
Well, I thought if David Hussey was going to get picked for Australia, it was going to be the last tour to India, which was 2 years ago, maybe. So I just think maybe at 35 he might have just missed the boat. But I mean, he could play well under those sort of conditions. Then, if he plays well, does he go to the Ashes? You've got to weigh up.
Well, it seems like a Maxwell they're aiming for that, aren't they?
Absolutely.
Down the order,
look,
spin.
I would love to see David Hussey is the best player of spin bowling in Australia and has been for 5-7 years. I would love to see him play in that spot. And to me, look. George has done a good job as captain. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But if you're looking at people to win matches for Australia, and that's the way I judge somebody's potential as an international, David Hussey can win a test match for Australia, and I'm not sure if George Bailey can.
To see Luke Pommersbach bat as well as he did the other night was, I know the more he continues to play, the more he's going to be able to show that over and over again.
I know you probably haven't been around him as much recently in recent times, but more than us. He's had a checkered past. He's moved to Brisbane. Have you seen him sort of mature or settle down a little bit in his time up there?
I don't really know him that well, even leading into playing with him at the Brisbane Heat. I've heard a lot about him and a few different stories, but he just seems like a really quiet, passive guy. Yeah. I was only in and around the team for 3 or 4 days, but he just seems like a really, he's a guy that's really comfortable in his skin. By what I've heard, he's really just taken a look at how things have sort of panned out in his life and has made a few adjustments, and it's starting to really show in how he's able to express himself on the cricket field, and I think it's really impressive to be able to see, and I hope and I know he will continue to just go from strength to strength.